there was only CEO Patterson and this Chapman room right now, I think CEO Patterson would stroll in the hospital. Before CEO Hunt could finish, the lighter in Peter's hand suddenly flew out, and it happened to land in CEO Patterson's glass.
I was looking for a ton Hazel.
And CEO Patterson had been unprepared for
What do you need with him?
The back of his hand and palm were pierced by glass shards, and he
He's
shouted
working
in
overtime, it's no
pain.
problem.
Who dared to smash my glass? CEO Patterson threw the remains of the glass in his
It's a drug.
his injured hand, shouting loudly. The atmosphere in the room became stifled and oppressive. CEO Patterson thought it was one of the other CEOs or their assistants who had done it. Among the CEOs, CEO Patterson was considered the most powerful and wealthy, so he was not afraid of the power. Don't dare to admit it, son of a bitch. Before he could finish, a cold laugh sounded out. It was very prominent in the quiet room. The tall man stood up from his chair, his hands in his pants pocket, a leisurely and unconcerned look on his face. His eyes gleamed with a trace of bloodthirsty hostility. He was a man who licked blood from his knife. From wherever he stood, he was able to exude an air of danger and coldness. It was not something a businessman like CEO Patterson could match. CEO Hunt had seen Peter flick the lighter and smash CEO Patterson's glass. Wasn't Peter about to be engaged with Shane Dunn's daughter? Was he interested in Noella? Probably it was the righteousness in him that made him unstable to stand by and watch CEO Patterson bullying a girl. CEO Patterson saw Peter walking towards him and he frowned. Although he knew Peter, he did not know him that well. He would not be like CEO Hunt, sucking up to him like a pig. Not wanting to lose face in front of Noella and the other CEOs, CEO Patterson straightened up his neck and shouted angrily, "Peter, you're just a dog of Shane Dunn's. Do you think you're still the same Peter as you were in Michaeltown? I have business dealings with Shane, so just one word from me and he will punish you, you disobedient dog." CEO Hunt wanted to get up and remind CEO Patterson that Peter was not to be trifled with. Shane was getting older, and when Peter and his daughter got engaged, wouldn't all the assets of the Dunn family be under Peter's name? Besides, Peter had certain means in the business industry. If CEO Patterson provoked him, his business might even go bankrupt. The other two CEOs shot CEO Hunt a look, indicating that he should not get himself involved in this messy situation. The assistant that was with CEO Patterson wanted to go forward a few times, but his legs turned weak when Peter swept his eyes over him. Like a panther, Peter walked to the front of CEO Patterson slowly, as though he was eyeing his prey. Peter was a head taller than CEO Patterson. One man was short and fat, the other tall and slim. The huge shadow hung over CEO Patterson, and he was in a panic, looking up at Peter. "What do you want to do?" Peter was wearing a pair of black pants that ended above his ankles, revealing his ankles, and his black leather shoes were spotless. The corner of his lips were lifted up, and there was a terrifying coldness shooting out from his eyes. "Do you know the consequence of being bitten by a dog?" As his last syllable fell, he raised his leg, accurately and ruthlessly landing it on CEO Patterson's calf bone. The calf bone is one of the most fragile bones of the human body. It would hurt with just a light kick, not to mention being kicked so hard and deliberately this way. The blood on CEO Patterson's face drained away, and he started shouting even louder than he had when the glass shards pierced his hand.
Yeah.
"Oh, how dare you kick me! Believe it or not, I'll sue you till you get thrown in prison." Peter narrowed his eyes, looking like he wanted to laugh. He looked scary. was not afraid of CEO Patterson's threats and grabbed his wrist, pressing his injured hand onto the table. When Noella and the other CEOs in the room saw this, they were puzzled. What was Peter going to do to CEO Patterson? Peter took out a sharp knife from his waist, the dangerous smile on his face deepening. Recently, I've been practicing my knife skills. Since CEO Patterson is so good, I'll use CEO Patterson's hand to try out my new skills. CEO Patterson looked at the knife and he sobered up a lot. He blinked and looked at the man close to him, his expression changing. God, why had he provoked this devil? Peter. Not giving CEO Patterson the chance to finish, the knife suddenly shot between the fingers of CEO Patterson. The action was sharp and fast. Everyone in the room held their breath when they saw this, especially CEO Patterson, who now had the dagger between his fingers. Peter, I drank too much and said the wrong. Let me off this time. Peter cut a wound on each of CEO Patterson's fingers. CEO Patterson's face paled with the pain, but he dared not say anything and could only grit his teeth and bear it. CEO Patterson, remember, next time you will not do cross-cup drinking with a woman. Retrieving the knife, Peter took several paper towels to wipe the blood away. Then he strode out of the room quickly, not staying a second longer. Noella only reacted once the door to the room was closed. She let the other CEOs know that she was leaving before walking out of the room in big steps. By then, Peter had already walked to the lobby. Taking in a deep breath, Noella ran towards him. Peter! She called his name instinctively, but the next second changed how she addressed him. Mr. Harris.
Dear listener, now playing the next audio series. Oh, Amy faded into the background behind Emma. People online had also expressed their opinions. Why is Amy so pitiful? Here I was being so trusting of her and having so much faith in her dominating presence on stage. Dominance means nothing when she appears different online and offline. No wonder she lost to Emma. I finally know why Emma won. It's because she can wear any clothes. She is indeed amazing. I noticed these photos were
Why is there a
received
key?
with
I need
bad
to open them.
intentions. The photos specifically targeted both of their chests. I'm sorry, but I must say Emma is the winner. It has nothing
Because
to
you
do
move
with
your hand
her
when you
looks.
go
On
draw.
the
You
way
got to move
home,
and put them
Amy
back.
lay in the back seat and burst out crying. Meanwhile, sitting in the driver's seat, Charlene found herself unusually pleased with the result. She never expected Emma to have the ability to damage this woman so much. I want to kill her. I want this woman to be dead. She screamed as she cried. All the while, actually think you still have a chance? In the past, she had multiple people following her around, ready to do her bidding. However, Eric had now dismissed her team. She had no idea that there was still more suffering headed her way. In order not to make Eric jealous, Emma changed into a long white dress before leaving the waiting room, escorted by Louise. As soon as everyone saw her, they couldn't help but tease.
Episode 374, The Rescue. Emma searched and searched from above the fire and could not see a shape or movement that might have been Robert. It was so hot, hanging over the edge of the roof, and the fire was too busy for her to see anything clearly. In the distance, She could hear the sirens of police cars and fire engines. Of course, anyone who saw the fire in the old clothing factory would alert the authorities. A fire here, left to burn, could hurt the wildlife in the pond near the factory. Emma was quick to get up and head downstairs. On the way, Emma saw Lynn was still sitting where Ted had left her, clearly shaken up and unable to do much else. Emma walked over to her to help her up. Sister-in-law, you must go to my brother first. You just go to my brother. I will be okay, Lynn said. Emma took in her form, scanning her from head to toe with a concerned gaze. She wanted to listen to Lynn, to go after Robert, but she wanted to be in two places at once, just as much. She rested a comforting hand on Lynn's leg and made eye contact with her. It's still safe here, and the firefighters will make their way up here soon. Don't be afraid. When I find Robert, I will come to help you too. Lynn didn't dare to delay her. She just... Episode 375. Rest Assured. After a long time, Carrie's cell phone rang. She opened it and saw a chat notification sent from Samuel. Samuel told her that Lynn was now out of the operating room, and the doctor said she would be okay. Carrie replied, "This is not over yet. Take care of Lynn and let me know if you have any other news." After that, she put away her phone and turned to face Emma as she said, "Emma, Lynn is okay. She's been sent to a private room. You can rest assured." Emma looked back at her and nodded. Carrie reached out and held her hand. "Are you hungry for something? I'll buy it for you." She shook her head. Carrie asked, "Would you like a drink? Some water? I'll buy it for you." Emma shook her head. Carrie was worried and looked back at Ted. "I'll go buy some water," he said. Carrie got up and said lightly, "I know what she likes to drink. I'll go. Please help and stay with her." Ted lightly considered that he also knew what kinds of things Emma liked to drink. He just didn't know if Emma's tastes had changed in the past 2 years. Carrie got up and left quickly. Ted silently gazed at Emma.
Yeah, film the good one.
There was no one around to disturb him, and he could look at the face he missed day and night more freely. After 2 minutes, Ted walked over to Emma, squatted down, and looked into her line of sight. Emma. She raised her head to meet his gaze. Ted smiled at her and said, "He will be okay." "Thank you," she said after a long moment of silence. They were very close, and Ted seemed to be able to smell the unique fragrance that was purely Emma while he sat in front of her. Carrie came back with 3 bottles of drinks, one for Ted and the other for Emma. Emma was just about to accept her drink when the door of the operating room opened. She immediately handed the drink back to Carrie, turned and ran up to the doctor who opened the door. She looked anxiously at him. "Doctor, doctor!" She was so excited that she couldn't ask. It was Carrie who walked up to the doctor after, who asked,
Relax your finger.
"Doctor, how is Mr. Erickson's situation?" The doctor took off his mask and said to her, "Mrs. Erickson, please rest assured that your husband is out of danger. He has broken his leg and has several burns on his body. We have already treated them. Next, he will just need lots of rest and relaxation in order to recuperate." Once the doctor was finished speaking, Emma's whole body of tense muscles and strained nerves just seemed to instantly relax. Without all that tension, Emma felt herself start to fall backwards, away from the doctor. All the strength seemed to leave her body at the same time. Carrie reached out to help her from falling, but because she was completely out of strength, she was too heavy for Carrie to catch. From behind, Ted moved quietly and quickly to walk forward and help her support Emma. Emma didn't seem to realize all of this. She even forgot to thank them. She turned to hold Carrie's hand tightly. "Oh, Carrie, he's not dead. He's still alive." Emma cried when she was done speaking. Then she hugged Carrie tight in her arms. Carrie also cried. She was relieved for her best friend. In fact, she was terrified just now. If something had happened to Robert,
What could she have done to help both Emma and Samuel? Both of them were the most important people in her life. She never wanted either one of them to be hurt, and she would just be beside herself if they were both struggling at the same time. Emma was terrified. Robert, don't you know me? I'm Emma. I'm your wife. Big, warm tears slipped over her cheeks, and her shaky hands reached out to pick up the buzzer to call a nurse. How could Robert not know her? Did you hurt your head when you fell down? He could only look at her with a smile and kind of shake his head no. What could she do? The person who loved her the most didn't know her. What should she do? With these frantic thoughts clouding her mind, her hands had not yet touched the bell to summon a nurse. She held Robert's hand in the other hand, and it was suddenly held tight by him. Robert used some strength to speak loudly enough to stop her. Little love, don't cry. She was a little confused and looked down at him. He grinned. Seeing the smile, her first reaction was that this bastard was teasing her. She bowed her head and hugged him, crying, Robert, you bastard, how can you tease me now? Because of the wounds on his body, Robert hissed a few times through the pain. Emma quickly backed up and looked down at him with worry in her eyes. She felt a pang of guilt-ridden pain when she saw she had pressed herself against the burn on his shoulder. I'm sorry, I hurt you, didn't I? Seeing her face full of guilt, Robert smiled at her with relief. It's okay. Your husband is not made of porcelain. Besides, as long as you were the one giving it, even the pain is sweet. I'm willing to die from the pain. She said, reaching for his mouth. Robert gave her a kiss and his dry lips. Don't cry. It'll make me feel bad. Emma sat up and wiped her fingertips under her eyes, trying to wipe away any evidence that she had been crying. But her words betrayed her efforts. How can you expect me to not cry? Did you know that if you had not been blocked by this canopy, if you had fallen in a place where the fire was more serious, you would be dead right now? I'm so scared for you. I'm crying more as I think about it. It would be better to die than to hear the doctor announce any pets. Robert looked at her. So you say there was no bad news? He took a sniff and pointed to his leg. It's broken, you know. The doctor told you that. I need to stay on it. There are many burns on my body. I won't be able to go to work or have meetings. You probably shouldn't go to campus while I heal. I'll have to stay at home with my wife and child. Emma smiled despite her husband's clear frustration. In that case, you probably shouldn't spend too much time with Emmett. He is still learning how to control his limbs. If he reaches out and slaps or kicks... She shook her head. He could accidentally bump one of your wounds. Then I'll stay in the hospital. And you'll stay here with me. Emma wiped her tears and closed her eyes briefly before she drawled. I don't know if I want to stay here with you. You were willing to die with Jennifer. You silly woman. You were angry at me about that? I didn't do that for... Robert started and then immediately stopped talking. He saw the worried expression on Emma's face and knew that a bit of anger was mixed up in there too. Robert smiled at her. So, I should probably just admit that I was wrong. Emma looked at him and bowed her head to kiss him on the lips. You can't live without me. How am I supposed to live without you? You think my heart is very stupid? Robert nodded. It's my fault. Nothing like that will ever happen again. You have my word. Emma nodded and ran her fingers through his hair as she looked into his eyes. Well, yes, there won't be another time. Jennifer died in the fall. She was not as lucky as you, and she died from her injuries before the ambulance even arrived. She will never disturb our life again. Mentioning Jennifer, Robert's eyebrows creased in disbelief. Is she really dead? When the firemen rescued her, they said she had no signs of life. Robert squeezed her hand and tried to smile to keep the tears collecting in her eyes from falling over her cheeks. Why did you agree to go with her? Emma cried and wiped at the tears as they slipped down her cheeks. Robert shook his
We got
head.
a pickup truck reported stolen 20 miles from the country road where George Cole was found.
I wanted to get her away from
Put
you.
on an APB on the vehicle.
He squeezed her hand as tight as he could and gave her a mischievous
I
smile.
want this vehicle found. You
I
understand
knew
me?
that even if I got her in my hands, I wouldn't be able to get her to Jacob's grave to confess what she'd done. So I thought it would just be a partner trip for her to see him directly in the afterlife. He shrugged and grimaced at the involuntary gesture. Emma shook her head at what he said. His face was more or less dignified, but he really laughed after she said, "Yeah, I'm sure she'll be redirected to her last resting place after she apologizes to your oldest brother in heaven."
What's up?
Nurse said the sedative should wear off in an hour or two.
Look, I'll call you when she wakes up, right?
Thanks, Tom.
Eagle has eyes on suspect, Highway 4A.
It's a dread out soon. I read now you. I'm not work on you and don't know if you need.
376. He can't bear it. Even though she was in her own recovery process, Lynn wanted to see Robert as soon as she heard he was awake and available to have visitors. Despite the doctor's orders for rest and relaxation, Lynn was getting pretty upset at the idea of not being able to see Robert now that he was awake. Samuel was getting anxious, mostly because of her temperament. But he would be lying if he didn't say that he was worried about both his brother and his sister. So he pushed her wheelchair to take her to Robert's room so they both could check in on him. At the sight of Robert in the hospital bed, covered in bandages, Lynn cried out, "I'm sorry. I'm the one. This was all my fault. It's all my fault that you're here right now." It was good to see that Lynn was here. Robert felt relieved.
Weapon was spotted.
He said coldly,
Car was stolen.
"Are you happy to cry? Stop it, please."
So nothing.
One picture.
I can't stop it. Did you know how worried I was about you? I was so afraid you'd die. Lynn sobbed.
You wanted to take him alive.
"Oh, you are so
Sounds like this, they want to
kind.
go out and play
When
some
Jennifer caught you, why did you think about using your brain?" Lynn dropped her gaze. "I was so stupid. When I saw Jennifer on the road, I ran after her as soon as I saw her.
This is
I was surprised and excited. Who knew that she was so resourceful, and she deliberately appeared to lead me to a trap.
Yeah, that happened right there.
Stupid is stupid. Don't make excuses for yourself."
We've seen pictures of
Hearing Robert's tone, Emma turned to Lynn and said,
I mean, I
"Lynn,
searched everywhere.
your brother's okay. You can rest assured and go back to have a good rest." Lynn looked at Emma, and at first her face was full of annoyance. After a second, she said, "Sister-in-law, thank you for being willing to give your life to save me. I used to be mean and act out. I didn't know what to do. I hurt you. From now on, I will treat you very well."
How long is it?
Robert said coldly, "You're learning how to be good now." After looking back at him and shaking her head at him, Emma said to Lynn, "That was the past. Let's turn the page after today. In the future, we'll only look to the
And move on
future.
away.
This will be the case for all of us, okay?" Carrie came forward and patted Lynn's hand. "I told you that your sister-in-law would hold none of this against you. You had no reason to worry." That's when Lynn broke into tears. Samuel came to his bedside and looked down at Robert, who was full of injuries. His face was full of worries. "Brother, are you really okay?"
Overtakes you in the
Robert
day
looked
and
at him.
deserts you at night.
"Why? Is there something you'd like me to do?" "Nonsense. I hope you're healthy." Robert couldn't help but smile. "Okay. You don't have to look at me like I'm going to the grave. I said I'm okay. I have no worries. And I have plenty to worry around me already. So you don't need to bother me when I tell you it's okay. I'm fine." Carrie added, "I think your brother is trying to say that he is very much taken care of by Emma." Robert frowned thoughtfully.
I love it.
"It's very rare.
But right now, you seem to be the only one who understands where I'm coming from. Carrie smiled at Samuel and said,
Polling stations have been
Let's
busy
go
today.
quickly, and your brother clearly doesn't need to see us. It's very chilly in here, said
Taking the opportunity to
practically reading my mind.
Samuel saw his brother was still in the mood to joke, but he also looked
brilliant man.
He turned back to Lynn and said,
Contribution.
Okay, now that you know our brother is
He and
stable,
I
can you go back and take good care of yourself?
visions of the future.
Lynn
I
nodded.
see a future where
Samuel stepped forward and pushed Lynn's
Look,
wheelchair
I'm not
out.
open now, so just.
He said to Carrie,
confirm my vision.
let's go. Carrie approached the
So the strong like I want to now. You couldn't stiff.
She turned around,
You can make an
went
hour.
back to Emma's side, and
The way they are giving me instructions in this salon.
Emma looked at her. Carrie raised her eyebrows and said, I just asked him to go back, but he didn't seem to listen to me.
I don't know anything about that.
Emma nodded and said, you can go back with Samuel.
52 people were killed in that crash.
Put your hands like this. Turn it like this.
After they left,
Rose, I know
Robert
that
she was her
in your college days.
Emma pointed to the
I
door.
also know
She
how
said Ted
integral
was still
your
at the door.
the development.
Beauty is
After she
pain.
mentioned Ted, Robert waited a long moment before he
It was a
said,
long time ago.
Emma,
I had a breakdown in
please
college.
make sure Lynn gets back to her room.
Dropped out.
Tell Ted he can come in for a while. I have to talk to him
Sorry
about
to
something.
hear that.
That'll be
Will you
good.
tell me what you want to say to him?
There was someone else
She
involved in
asked,
the
sounding
development
worried. Don't worry.
that someone
I
felt
won't be
pushed
angry
out
with
and
him.
wanted back in.
Be obedient. Check on our little sister.
Why don't you just
She
ask
hesitated for a moment and turned to the door.
You haven't heard, have you?
When Ted saw her,
I'm
he
sorry.
sounded a
Guys,
little
this life is ending in 30 minutes.
My
So
husband
in
wants to
3
talk
more
to you.
minutes,
Do you have time?
then I will show you guys a finished product
He was on his way to be here.
layout. Maybe in the thumbnail.
Ted didn't make a sound and watched Emma.
I'll show you guys the final
Ted had already
results
She was worried.
layout.
Also told her it was going to be okay.
One of the videos.
Ted entered the room and
I
saw
think I'll put the
Brian that
full video on my channel. You can watch the final nail.
to talk to me. Today,
Please,
you
just
dragged
tell
me
me
out of the
everything
fire.
you know.
I should thank you for your
2
kindness.
minutes more.
Ted
And I'll
seemed
end
stunned in
this.
the face of Robert's gratitude.
He wouldn't listen to me.
I only saved you for Emma. If I were you,
Care about him.
I might not have saved her husband for the sake of the woman you loved. After all, if I were dead, wouldn't you stand a better chance of being with her? Ted sneered. Are you saying this to me because you don't know your own wife? Or do you think that Emma's love for you is less than mine? That she might be lying? Robert was not angry. He just looked at me and smiled. You can see exactly who Emma is to me. You know I don't have a chance anymore. What are you going to do without your back? Ted could only sigh, because he did not have the words to speak. Even if he did, he wasn't sure whether he would inform Robert of his current plans or not. But Robert seemed to talk to himself, or somehow was reading his mind. Robert simply looked at the man for a moment, trying to determine if he would answer his question. And when he didn't, he said, it's hard for a man to pull a woman from it's hard when she's there.
Sure, at the same time,
But you can't do it, right?
engineering society has
Looking at Robert in silence,
but
Ted was surprised.
with his
It was exactly like that.
they have to do
Robert shook his head and smiled. If this was before Ted, I would say that this is the punishment you deserve after betraying them. But now I am very clear where Emma's heart is, and you have no power in front of me.
Thanks, Jill.
So I will stay calm and try to advise you.
Okay. People are doing it.
If you can't let her go,
It was great.
it's only you who are hurt. No, she doesn't want to have a happy life. So to pester her now,
You know what I'm saying?
thinking that wound is not for Emma. It's for you.